I'm excited to welcome back Georgia Eaton to the show. She's the owner of Got Gophers. They're located in the Bay Area.
You know, you definitely have those women that are far more capable than the men, but they just don't see that. Because I think a lot of women probably have self-doubt because this is more of a man's world. So I think kind of pulling them that way and being like, yes, we want you to apply as well, like would be something that would be helpful.
Most of the women that I've worked with in pest control, I always felt like they had this awesome advantage because they were very detail oriented, powerful, driven, non-intimidating, but they were very knowledgeable. And almost any client that they interacted with or anybody else in the business they interacted with, they just seemed like they could do it with ease.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Bug Bucks podcast. I'm Alan Draper. As always, I've got Eric Bassett with me. What's going on, Eric?
Hey, Alan, not too much. Just moving my way into this fall weather. So enjoying that, kind of getting ready for the quote unquote prep season, like we usually talk about. So that's been good. Yeah,
awesome. Arizona, we hit like this cold front. It's like really cooled off. It's getting to like low 50s at night. So happened real fast, but there's still a ton of activity. Man, ants were nasty this year. They're popping up all over, digging up paver sand and so annoying, man. I hate bugs, but I love them.
Yep. Love-hate relationship with bugs right there for sure.
For sure. I hate when I have them. I love when other people do.
Exactly. That's how it goes. Yep.
For sure, man. Well, before we get started with our guest today, I wanted to remind the listener, go and check out our Facebook group, Bug Bucks, BUGBUX on Facebook. We have, I think it's over 3,100 PCOs in there now. No vendors in there. You have to own a pest control company to be in there or in the process of starting it. So that's a great sounding board for people that have ideas. We're getting more and more posts. We have, I think, 3 to 5 a day now, just different topics. So great resource there. Make sure that you join the group, BUGBUX on Facebook. I'm excited to welcome back Georgia Eaton to the show. Couple of things about Georgia. This is the third time she's been on the show. As a lot of you know, I have 2 podcasts. I have this one with Eric, and then I have a podcast called the Business Growth Pod that I do solo with guests. And between both podcasts, I've recorded hundreds and hundreds of episodes. And maybe not, I think like 200 or something. I'll have Becky check on that for me. But Georgia is the only guest that has now been on 3 times. And not only that, she was my very first guest on any podcast ever. So the very first podcast recording I did, it was with Georgia. She's the owner of Got Gophers. They're located in the Bay Area, and they've been in business for almost 4 years. And the last time we had her on, her episode dropped on January 27th, 2022. And it's titled Be Your Own Boss, Start Up from the Ground Up. So make sure you check that one out. Also, but welcome to the show, Georgia. We're glad to have you back.
Thank you so much for having me back. I feel super honored.
Yeah, so I've had people on like a couple of times, but yeah, this is the first trifecta that we've got going on. So, and I'm sure that's going to continue into as long as you'll have us. We'll have you. So, and I think a lot of it's just because your story's very cool. It's unique in a lot of ways. I think it's unique, the geographic area where you are. I think it's unique because you're female, and pest control, as we know, is there's a lot of male aspects to it. And so we like that. The way you grew, your background in pest control, your story. So to get the listener caught up to speed, why don't you kind of just give us high level? Now, a lot of people that are listening to this right now they've heard both episodes that you've been on, but for those that haven't, just give us a little background, how you got started and kind of where you are now.
Okay. So 2013, I started working for a company that was pretty much just starting out in pest control, and I was hired to be the office manager. So answer phones, set up appointments. And then slowly over the years, my duties changed. And then I became, I basically started running the company for the owner at the time. So we went from like having maybe 3 or 4 technicians to having 22. And so everything was kind of, overseen by me, and I was running the day to day. Long story short, I was there for just shy of 6 years. And then the owner kind of wanted to go in a different direction, and we parted ways. And I was like, well, hey, I was already kind of doing this, and why not start my own thing? So I think for me, it was more like giving back to the customer, what we had at the company when I originally started, which was more of a kind of mom and pop feel for us, just listening to them and being available when they needed us, because that's what they were hiring us to do, and not telling them you have to wait or you have to pay more. So I think just going with that strategy and really focusing on listening to the customer, I started my own company with one technician, and I kind of ran it from there. And here we are, fast forward 3.5 years later, and we've got, I don't know, people ask me all the time. It's so hard to keep track. I think we've got 22 employees, and we've got like 4 office staff now too. So I don't know, somewhere between 22 and 25. That's how fast we grow, that I can't even tell you the exact number, but it's happened very quickly. And that's kind of where we're at today. I'm just this is the first year I think I've been able to take a breath and be like, okay, what can I do to make this coming year, 2023, not so crazy for me with all the responsibility that came with growing so fast. So it's kind of where we're at, and finally kind of get a chance to breathe a little bit.
Very cool. So when you first started, did you think that you would grow as fast as you have?
I think that's a good question. I think I knew that I would be successful. I was hoping that it would be fast, but I didn't think it would be as fast as it was, to answer the question. So maybe deep down inside, I kind of had a feeling, but I think it just all came so fast that it just, I didn't even have a chance to think about it while it was happening, because you just kind of go into this cycle of, day in, day out, day in, day out. And then all of a sudden you kind of get a minute and you're like, wait a minute, I have all these different personalities now that I have to be in charge of. And then I have a minute to step back and be like, okay, I need to be able to manage this and this and that. And that's kind of when I realized, like, wow, we kind of did something pretty amazing here. So yeah. So I kind of always expected it, as weird as that sounds. And only because I think because of the stance that I have with our customers, and kind of what the expectation I had for our company was. I had a feeling that with the limited competition that we have here, we were going to stand out in that way of just being available to our customers. So in the moment when you don't have the customers, I think you're like, when are they coming? I would pray for the phone to ring, and now the phone rings. I'm like, can I just get a break? So it's a very weird position to be in.
I think it's every PCO's dream to obviously start their own thing and then have this epic growth. But obviously it's a blessing and a curse, right? Just like you said, one minute you're like wishing the phone will ring and you're like, oh, please, please let this work. Yeah. And the next minute you're like, dude, if the phone would just not ring for 5 minutes, that would be so great. Going from where you were, kind of transitioning out of this other company to starting your own business, what was the most difficult part about scaling as quickly as you did? Not necessarily getting from where you were to where you are now, but with that speed of growth, what kind of complications did you guys run into?
I would say we had quite a bit of complications, as weird as that sounds, because I think like I said, in the moment, you don't really think about it. But I think, obviously, like, number one, I think a lot of people can attest to this, is like money, right? You grow so fast, but then nobody really wants to fund you, because they're like, yeah, right. Like when I went into, I think, the Ram store to buy our first truck, our first van, I was like, I'm gonna need more, because I knew that I was gonna need more, and they just looked at me like, yeah, right. And then sooner or later
Yeah.
you go in and you get more and they're like, wait, you actually have the money for this? I'm like, yeah, can I get like a loan now? Can I get a line of credit? And they're just like, okay, maybe she's on to something here. So that was probably the most difficult part, was just kind of, you have to have that money up front when you're talking about a growth like what we experienced. Like there was no way to do it without the money, because eventually, it comes in. And I think if we all lived in a perfect world, we'd get paid right when we're supposed to get paid, but that doesn't always happen
Mhm.
when you're working with the city or the school district. So that definitely was one of our biggest challenges. And I think also, just managing the different aspects of the business, because I think as the owner, when you're starting, you kind of take on this role of doing everything. And then when you grow so fast, it kind of gets to a point of like, okay, well, I can't do everything. So where do I hire, and where do I take a step back? And I kind of have this love-hate relationship with the work, because I was so used to doing it all before. And now I'm like, I don't want to do it all anymore. So I'm like,
Yeah.
who can I give it to? So I think it's just delegating all this new responsibility that we have. And then also, yeah, the money issue was two of our biggest issues that we had, starting the company.
So when you
What was
started, if I
the
remember correctly, wasn't there a loan from a family member or something? Can you, if so, can you talk a little bit about that? Because a lot of people are like, never borrow from family. That's the worst thing you can do. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I'd absolutely say never borrow from family. I actually had family. I had friends that were like, we would totally invest, but I think I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it, by myself, and not,
Mm-hmm.
especially not with another, as horrible as this sounds, with another male, because I had such a bad experience, with the previous company, that I was like, I need to prove that I can do this on my own. So the only recommendation I would give is, yes, my mom is the one that kind of upfronted us money when we needed it, just on a credit card that she happened to have because of her great credit with no interest. So many times I'd be like, Mom, I can't make payroll. Like, can you, fund me this money? And she would totally do it without, batting an eye. And then we would get to the position where I would pay her off. And then sometimes I would need it again. And we kind of went through this back and forth thing for, I would say, the first 2 years. We kind of struggled with just the growth, because I had to tell like my techs, like, yes, we're busy, but that doesn't mean like we're rich or we have money. For every new person that we bring on, there's like more expensive, a new car, a car payment, car insurance, new equipment. So it's not just black and white. There's so much that goes into it. So we had her help, and then my husband and I both liquidated our 401k when we started
Mm.
as well. So that was all of a sudden I went from making great money at this other company to no money. And I was like, how are we going to make, and we had just bought a house. So that was scary. So we both just took it out to kind of have something to fall back on. So yeah, definitely something that was a need, must for starting this company. Hmm.
Man, I feel like a lot of PCOs, obviously they're scared to liquidate all their assets to build a
Hmm.
business, right?
Right.
It's kind of that sink or swim, burn your ships kind of mentality, which is awesome for you guys.
Hmm.
I can't remember. I remember we talked about it in the last episode that you had. Is your husband involved in the business?
No, he's not. So I think if you asked him, he would say 100% he would love to be, but I won't let him. I think also it was a big, um, I knew what I was doing, because I was able to grow the other companies like so fast as well, because I was there in a short period of time. Once the owner was like, hey, you're actually kind of good at this, why don't you take over? We grew really fast. So I knew that I didn't need, like, it's not that I didn't need help, because it's great to have like mentors. I've, called Allan before and was like, hey, what do I do in this situation? It's good
Mhm.
for that. And I would love to have mentors who are in the same position. But as far as like the day to day, I knew what I needed to do to get us where we're at, and I didn't need anybody to to stop me. And so to have him jump on board would mean I would need to have him sign contracts and I would need to have him do this and that. And I just didn't want to do it. But in California, regardless, he is, he is part owner of this company. Maybe not on paper, but for sure in California. But I think one day when we get to a certain point, he would probably come on board and, just be able to be part of the company, I think is his big dream. But right now he's doing his own thing and I just run this, and maybe in the next couple of years he'll be able to kind of come on board and not have to do like the normal, 8 to 5 type of job and just be able to be like, hey, I'm part of this family business. So that's the goal.
I think that's an important aspect. I was just saying, I think that's an important aspect. Me and Allan talked about this in the last or a previous episode, which is working with family. And an important distinction is that you can always have family members invest in the business without having them come on as a partner that you probably don't need. Right. And just like you were saying, you had a proven track record of success. You knew what you were doing, and you really didn't need anybody else having to have their own mind and ideas and everything else in there. Obviously he has some involvement because you guys have a relationship. And that plays a role. Everybody knows that, but it is your baby for all intents and purposes. So that's kind of an important thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I love the cashing in the 401k, borrowing money from my mom on a credit card story.
Yeah.
People, I get approached a lot for different types of advice, but financial advice a lot of times, and they'll come to me and they'll be like, hey, should I do this 401k or that one, or this Roth or that one? And I'm like, neither of those. You should start a business if they're, an entrepreneur, and, you probably had some penalties because you don't look like you're the age of, what is it, 65 and a half or whatever, 60, something like that. So would you do it again?
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like there's something so, and maybe you guys know this, like just something so amazing to know that you are, like the chances that you take have been able then to provide for all my employees. Like, it's definitely a group effort. I wouldn't be able to do it without them, but just knowing that all the hard work is able to like put food on their table, have them take care of their families because of our sacrifice, like that means it's like all worth it for me. Like if if I had to do it again, I wouldn't do it any other way. Obviously, if I could, you'd save more money, but for me, it wasn't. And I tell this to like my employees sometimes, just so they know where I come from, because I'm so imperfect, right? We don't get like a handbook saying this is exactly what you have to do when you run a business, especially one that grows this size. And I just tell them like, it was never my intention to start this business. Had it been my intention, I would have planned a little bit better, but it kind of just happened and fell into my hands. And I don't necessarily want to be the boss, but I am, and I'm going to do what I can, like the best way I see fit. And obviously along the way you hire HR and you hire people who can help you make the correct decisions. But I just, wanted them to know like this was just something that kind of exploded, and I'm trying to, hang on for the ride like they are and figure it all out as we go, for sure.
I feel like every PCO and maybe every entrepreneur has some degree of OCD, especially when it comes to like money and investments. And just like Allan was saying, when people ask about the best ways to plan for retirement or best investments to have, it's like, have a business, man. Like if you can have a business, especially like a pest control one that we've all been involved in and know what kind of return on investment there is. I mean, that's where I want to put my money. And when I can invest my money in something that I have direct control over versus putting my money into something else that someone else controls and it's less involved. I would much rather have my money in this type of a growth engine and just go with that. So I can appreciate what you're saying. Going back, looking at your 401k, would you do it again? 100%. All the money that I've invested, I think I liquidated some properties when I bought in as a partner. And even with the crazy things that the market did in the last few years, I would 100% do that all over again to have a piece of the pie that I own now.
Right.
So
Yep.
makes a lot of sense.
I think there's something special that happens when we make a huge commitment to ourselves. When we say, I'm not just going to believe in myself, like mentally or philosophically, like I'm going to make tangible moves that I can't come back from.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I think something special happens then. And a lot of the process of being an entrepreneur and being a PCO is us learning about ourselves. One of my favorite aspects of owning a pest control company is that it's the greatest growth I've ever had personally is by, it's not college, it's not, other great important things in my life, but just professionally and what I've been able to develop in terms of personal skills and all these things. Nothing was better than starting Proof, 8 years ago or whatever. So, George, I want to switch gears just a little bit with you and chat about women in pest control. I think it's phenomenal. Compare yourself to anybody, you're doing awesome. And sometimes I feel like things can be a little short-sighted because we put people into categories. Any category you're in, you're doing phenomenally. Talk to me a little bit about what it's like being a female in the pest control industry and, what you see the future of pest control being, and what can we do to encourage more of that and help people that want to get into the female specifically that want to get in the pest control industry. Just give me all the answers.
Okay. So we definitely have a girl technician on our team. And she does our spraying, and she is our rat technician. So she will get down and dirty in a nasty crawl space in an attic. And she is awesome at what she does. And our customers love her. So I think to be honest with you, what she told me was that if I wasn't given the opportunity, I would have never been able to be where I'm at, right? She went to like the Rat Academy. She's got, she knows, like, she studied, rats and their behavior, and she's just an expert at it. But she's like, if nobody gave me that opportunity, I would have never been able to get here. And so I think it's kind of like, oh yeah, pest control is like a man's world. So it's like, don't even think about it. And that's kind of how I felt too. Like, I was fine to run the office and everything, but to be an owner, I was like, that wasn't even in my thought process at all. I was just like, nope, I'm here to kind of just do what the owner needs me to do. But I think putting yourself and giving yourself that opportunity is like, what, like, you can really do anything. And I think what I've heard a lot from our customers who do get to meet her and talk with us and talk to our staff is like, there's something I think that women have is like any little area, like we'll have, our rat specialist who's a guy go out, and it's like, we can't figure out where this rat is coming from, but we'll send our Juana out, our girl tech, and she's like, this is the area that he missed. So I think it's like this mentality to like get things done and get things done fast. Whereas like a girl, not, and this is just my opinion and what I've seen, will find that little area that was missed, that was like an oversight. So she takes her time. And I think that just giving her the opportunity to kind of take over this part of our pest control company has been, given her such confidence that now she's like telling her friends about it. And I think you guys are onto something great too, is like having a female come on and be like, look, like, she came from the ground up, had to take loans out, but like, it's paid off. So I think hearing that, and other women, hearing those stories and not being afraid, because I know there are a lot of women, that go out and do spraying and are, work for lots of different pest control companies. But I think that they kind of have that mentality of like, okay, I'm fine to, get my route and do my day to day. But it's like, you've got this. Like, I think that's something that we probably need to come together as women and just, give each other that, encouragement that, we can go beyond just being a spray tech or just being a rat tech and take over too, and do, just as well as the guys, if not better. So I think that just putting the word out there more, and going to these platforms that we've got on Facebook, and being able to speak our mind, and give our opinion and be like, oh yeah, maybe they kind of do know what they're talking about. So I think that's super important too, is just being able to give the confidence to each other, and let other women know that, hey, if this is something in your thought process, like, you absolutely can do it.
I think
I
it's
think
interesting
that's a
that you mentioned that when you were considering becoming an owner, it sounded like you didn't believe that it was the right fit for you, or that was something that you could do. You could do. And so what can we do in the industry to facilitate some of that, both from our perspective, us believing in females, and them believing in themselves, to kind of attract more to the industry and promote more, and do things like that?
I think just by giving them the opportunity, because I think that's like the first step, is like, we always kind of, I don't know if it's just that we, even for myself, like when I was first starting to even think about hiring, I'm like, oh, you think like a man can do this, a man can do that, he can lift this much, he can climb that ladder. But then when we gave the opportunity to our tech, she was able to do everything and then some. So it's like, I think just opening that door and say, men and women, but both, like, we're looking for whoever, because sometimes the man is not the fit and it's the woman that's the fit. And so I think for a lot of, like, even just when we're online looking at our, the different forums that we belong to, it's always like, oh, hiring, and it's all male. Like, there's no talk of, I had this female come in and she was phenomenal, or wasn't, or whatever. It's always like the guy showed up for 2 days and then quit. But it's like, if you open that up and even put in your when you have like ads out for looking for employees, put men and women, just because that you definitely have those women that are far more capable than the men, but they just don't see that opportunity, or even just that word, like, come and apply. We encourage you, as well. So I think that's super important, because I think a lot of women probably have self-doubt, because this is more of a man's world. So I think kind of pulling them that way and being like, yes, we want you to apply as well, like, would be something that would be helpful in the industry. And then, I know we do like lots of events, around the country too. And I know the women have their own, events too, that they do strictly for women. But I think just having more women speakers, at different events where it's mainly men, where they dominate, like, and go up and speak. I think it's great to hear stories like mine, to show other women that there is opportunity for you here, and you definitely can do it.
I love the opportunity that women have in any industry,
Right.
especially pest control, just because that's my main experience. And you actually remind me a lot of my older sister Jana, who is my business partner.
Mhm.
Just because she's really detail oriented, she's very driven, and she's not intimidating. And in fact, most of the women that I've worked with in pest control, I always felt like they had this awesome advantage because they were very detail oriented, powerful, driven, not intimidating, but they were very knowledgeable.
Mhm.
And almost any client that they interacted with, or anybody else in the business they interacted with, um, they just seemed like they could do it with ease.
Mhm.
And obviously, I know it's a lot of hard work. But like, we've had female technicians that were some of the best technicians we've ever had.
Mhm.
The customers love them, high customer satisfaction, and again, very detail oriented. We never had any issues with the service.
Mhm.
Some of the door-to-door reps that we've had some
Mm-hmm.
really high performing female door-to-door reps.
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of thing. They knock on the door. It's not intimidating, right? Which is one of the issues we have with male door-to-door reps.
Mhm.
But if anything, I love what you're saying, where we really should encourage a lot more women in the industry
Mhm.
to apply and give them opportunities to speak and to engage in these gatherings and and professional scenarios,
Mhm.
because there is a lot of room for the advantage of having women in the pest control industry. I've learned a lot from my sister and from other women in the industry, and I know that I still have a lot left to learn. So that's awesome.
Yeah, totally.
So if we do have some female technicians, managers, customer relation managers, door-to-door reps, owners that listen to this show. What's your message to them to, what advice would you give them, knowing what you know now, almost 4 years separated from pulling the trigger? What is that? What would you have told yourself back then to make you more comfortable or more motivated or feel more self-confident in succeeding in the pest control industry?
I think I would have told myself back then, like, it's going to be okay. Like, it's something that's so scary, and something you definitely can't like half-ass, right? You have to put your all into
Mm-hmm.
it. But I would say, like, don't be discouraged. Like, you might have a boss or you might have a coworker that's telling you you can't do it and you're not going to succeed without me. And that's just not true. And that's like, I'm living proof of that, because you have, if you have that like what you're just saying, like that extra something, and the customers love you and you have a great relationship with them, that is something that you can carry into your own business. And I feel like a lot of times, like, we can get intimidated, even after all this success that we've had. Sometimes I'm like, oh, there's a new person on the scene, like, oh my gosh, what are, like, we have to do this and that. But you know what? It's like, there is enough work for everyone. There's enough work for everyone. I think, just remembering that it's going to take a lot of hard work, and it's going to take maybe you know, some of your finances or all of your finances to get into it. But if your heart is there, and you want to be your own boss and you want to have like that big responsibility, it will work out in the end, as long as that's something that your heart is set on and you're not going to give up until you get there. That was my mentality. Like, I have so many people counting on me that there's no room to fail here. So whatever I had to do, like email out, to every school district, like, hey, this is a new company, we're starting out. Like, that's what we did. It was your version of door to door. It was like our version of, like, I need the school districts and the cities to be on our, let them know that we're here. So it's a lot of that. But, I just, you constantly have this battle in your mind of like, am I going to do it? Or how come we're not busy? Or what about this? But like, if I could tell myself back then, like, if I, where I was 3 years ago today, is like, you're going to be okay. And like, everything, all the sacrifice does pay off. Mm-hmm.
For the new owners that are kind of starting out or maybe transitioning like you did, what would you tell them? I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. Not necessarily advice, but you talked about delegating a little bit before, where kind of that was one of the struggles you guys had.
Mm-hmm.
What was the first thing that you delegated to somebody else?
I think, like we talked about, working with family. So you do, when you have your own company and your finances are kind of like everywhere, like when you take on like an office person, like you are essentially giving them like your accounting information if they're going to be doing billing and stuff like that. So for me, it was really important to have somebody that I trust. And so then is when I brought in my sister, who helps with the phones. And then we have somebody that I worked with previously at another job, who came in and helped with our billing. So those were the two tasks where she had to tell me, like, hey, you need to like relax and like let me help you. And so I think, because like I said, we just kind of grew so fast that it was all like, in my mind, like I never stopped. And so she stopped me and was like, hey, like, let us help you. Like, you don't have to, take this all on yourself. So I think that was the first time where I realized, like, okay, I have to give up this control, which was really hard too, because that's being, the office staff for the old company was what I was used to doing everything. So I was like, okay, I can't get fired. I can't, there's nobody that's going to get in trouble. So I was like, okay, I guess I can give this up. So that was the first point where I was like, okay, I definitely, being the business owner, you have so much responsibility that answering the phone, it isn't at the top of your list anymore. So definitely something that I feel like everybody should be aware of when you get there. Or you feel like you're getting there, it's definitely time to start looking for somebody that you can trust to help you not go crazy.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one other thing I was gonna bug you about, and it seemed like when you made the transition from that other company you worked with to kind of owning your own company, you guys really wanted to capitalize on that ma and pa kind of company vibe. And then from there, you've obviously scaled your company pretty big. What are some things or some pointers that you might be able to give out to other PCOs about keeping that small company feel, even when you have big company resources?
Right. So I think this year we had like about 1,800 customers, over 1,800 customers, which was our high. And that's a lot for when you're not just spraying, it's not just spray. Like we've got to go out and we've got to, spend time there and deal with critters. And for us, I think I'm so sorry, I got completely spaced out there for a second.
You're fine.
Okay, sorry. See, this is the mind of a pest control owner. So yeah, I think, can you repeat your question one more time? So sorry.
What do you think the best way for young PCOs would be to maintain that small company feel?
Oh, that's great. So I think for us, the most important thing was like getting the help that we got in the office. So that way, when somebody reaches out, for me, it's super important that they hear back from us. So I think a lot of times, if you don't respond within a certain amount of time, like they're not going to wait. Like you guys were talking about ants, like that's not something you can wait on. Like you want them out now. So we try to get back to everybody like ASAP. We'll get people like the YMCA that's like, oh, we've reached out to 5 people and you're the first one that's called us back, and so I think that just being available when they need us to be there is what I hold as a high standard for our company. It's like if a customer is reaching out, we're there for them. If they are not due for a service until next week, like we go out anyway because they're paying for a service. And if they need that service now, then we're going to do it now. So that's kind of how I tend to run the business, and how the expectation that I've set for our staff is like, whatever they need, we try to take care of it right away.
Awesome. That's great.
I love it. Georgia, you're a wealth of knowledge. Honestly, we appreciate everything that you do for the industry, everything you do for women. There are people that listen to what you have to say, that watch you, that look for your advice that you probably don't know about. So we appreciate you joining us today. If someone like that has a question or they want to reach out, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
I would say to find us on Google, just Got Gophers, and like our information is there. My email address is there. It is funny though, because after I do a podcast with you, I typically get a lot of mails that are like, hey, can I pick your brain on this and stuff? So I think that's awesome. And I think that's fantastic. And I think if we can help people, be better, like why not, so absolutely, anybody, questions are always welcome. And I reach out to people too, where I'm like, I don't know, do I go with this fleet management company? So I think it's great to be able to bounce ideas off of each other. But yes, anytime, our phone number is on our website and my direct email is on there as well. So if they were to do a submission through there, I would get it right away. So, and they can find me on Facebook as well. I'm part of all your guys's platforms. So just search me up and, private message.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Georgia. We enjoy watching your success and your journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please show your support by subscribing and leaving us a 5-star rating. Thank you. And we'll catch you on next week's episode.